from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro. Today we got a good one. This is one of my favorites of the new school. I'm glad we got him.
Yeah, I listen to Bonfire all the time with him and Big J. It was fun to have him on and talk to him.
He's hilarious. But without further ado,
Dan Soder.
there he is.
I was waiting for 15 minutes and then it just kicked me out.
That's Raelyn. She's kind of a bitch that way.
Hi, Raelyn. It was like Raelyn
Hi.
will start. It was like Raelyn will start the podcast soon, and then
Yeah, I think she looked
sitting
on and
there.
she's like, "What's he doing here so early?" She's a cunt, man. She
Yeah.
ditched you and got rid of you, and now you're back.
oh, that's
She's a stickler
what
for the
good
rules.
way to. What a good way to get your guest into the show. It's just like, let's
Good way to
fuck
make
with them.
friends. To make friends.
Yeah. I got one of those old desk lamps for Christmas, so you guys are getting that. Like,
Nice.
Hey,
That's true.
one of those actually set my house on fire. You might want to be careful there.
well, I live in an apartment in New York City, so maybe
You can take care of a lot of people with an apartment fire.
You can catch everyone's
Like a-
house on fire.
pretty sure I could thin the herd here with one irresponsible leave on of a light.
If only we have had something to thin the herd, I hadn't
Yeah, wouldn't
had
that have been cool?
anything lately.
You got anything?
Would have given us something to do for the last 2 years. Oh, wait.
Yeah,
Oh, wait. Dan, can I call you Dan?
sure.
I'm Raelyn. This is JB, my guitar player, friend, and co-host.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
So happy that you're here to join us. So we always start off the podcast by asking you, what is the first music you remember loving as a kid?
The
Honestly?
very first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a weird one.
Oh yeah, if you have a cool one, you're a dork.
You're lying.
and
You're
not
lying
being
if
honest.
you're
lying.
Yeah. Hey, Huey Lewis in the News, the sports album.
That was a big one.
What were songs that were on that one?
Hard to Rock and Roll. I
Damn
Want a
near-
New Drug, which later became the Ghostbusters theme. Walking on a Thin Line. Heart and Soul. There's a lot of. I'm gonna go full Patrick Bateman on you.
Yeah.
Sports was actually the definitive Huey Lewis in the News album, even though they're hip to be square. Yeah, Sports has got some hits.
Oh, they had a ton of hits off of that. They were all over MTV at the time, too.
Yeah, my dad was from the Bay Area, so he just loved anybody from the Bay Area.
Okay, and what about your mom? What did she like to listen to?
She loved Big Bonnie Raitt house because my parents were divorced when I was young. So at my mom's house, it was Bonnie Raitt, James Taylor, Kenny Loggins. Loved Kenny Loggins.
Oh, yeah.
And then my dad was just a lake alcoholic. So it was Jimmy Buffett, it was Steve Winwood. It was just like party fucking music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get drunk,
Off what? What was he drinking?
rum and cokes.
Really?
wow.
Well, those are.
Actually, this is fucking wild. And this story didn't pop into my head until just now while we're talking.
Okay.
But my father was a bartender at a bowling alley in Northern California, about 3 hours north of San Francisco, a place called Lakeport.
Okay.
And his claim to fame was that your grandfather and his tour bus stopped and they came in and had a drink at the bowling alley. I've always thought my dad was a liar, but the thought that even could possibly be true is cool.
What year would it have been? Around what years do you know?
Probably 1994, 95.
That's totally possible. He was.
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, when's he not out touring?
Oh, yeah, that's
He's
true.
been doing that since the 70s, so it sounds like something that would
But
happen.
also my dad was a deadbeat dad who was a liar who said there was a lot of birthday cards in the mail. So I don't ever trust.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's a good point.
I would hope that the story was true, but I wouldn't bank on it.
Is your dad still alive?
No. He died in 97.
Okay. Yeah, my dad died too. We're in the Dead Dads Club. Cheers.
DDC.
DDC.
Nice to see the Texas chapter has shown up.
JB's dad's still around, so.
Oh,
I'm an asshole. I know.
You can call him and tell him to fuck off. What a
Yeah.
joy that must be.
Living into old age.
You could be in
what
the
a
club, but
dickhead.
we'd have to kill your dad.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
We don't want to do that. We don't need to get into that. But yeah, it's, I mean, I've always said what's weird now is my dad died when I was 14. And now my friends I'm 38. And so now my friends' parents are dying of natural causes. And I'm like, okay. They're like, my dad died. I'm like, yeah, as he should have. It's that time.
Yeah.
What do you want? You want me to be like shocked? I was like, listen, bud, I got a huge pop when I was 14 and my dad was 46. So just,
Well, and then you think about it, is it better to lose them young when you only had a little bit of time with them? But you didn't really know them as an adult, So
yeah, no. I would say it's way better to have them as an adult. I think getting to know your parents as an adult must be very. Me and my mom have a great relationship because I've got to learn kind of who she is, and you're like, oh yeah, you're just a person. You're just a person, just like all of us.
It is weird when that
Winging
happens.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
you get to a certain age and you start. I was doing that the other day, just running the math back on how old my parents were when I was like in 8th grade, fucking up and stuff. And back then you think they're 60 years old, and I'm like, Jesus, they were in their 30s and had no idea what the fuck was going on.
Dude, I'm
just doing
38.
the best they can.
If I had a wily 13-year-old right now, I would be such a spaz. I'd be like, fucking calm down. Chandler, calm down. I just wouldn't be able to do it.
And I'm 53, so this was happening back in the late 70s and 80s when parenting was just crazy. They didn't want you in the house. They wanted you out of the house. They didn't give a shit what you did as long as you weren't in the house.
Yeah, that was the outside generation. Just go outside.
Yeah.
And then it's also it coincides with the kidnap generation. So I don't know if they really should have been doing that.
And there were probably a lot more of that shit going on without the internet back there. You didn't know about it,
Oh my God. Dude, you know what's so funny about Netflix and internet and smartphones and shit? Now when I watch any crime before 2000, I'm like, how did you not get away with it? How did you not get away with that?
Exactly. What we were talking about before we started, I don't even know what brought it up, but I was thinking about when I was in high school and somebody pulled the fire alarm. You get all the kids out of like, are there any fire alarm pullers anymore? Does that even happen in schools?
No, it's bomb threats.
Dude, I bet. Yeah. Now it's just bringing AR-15 to school day. That's just all it is now.
I'll get us out of class. Watch this.
Yeah. You want the day off school? How about a half day? I'll come back and right some wrongs.
Well, we grew up in the stranger danger times, where they scared the shit out of me. I really thought I would get kidnapped if I was to go anywhere where I couldn't see my house if I was outside.
Yeah, that's because the outside generation was just going missing and not coming back for dinner. And then they told all of us, they were like, hey, if you don't have a password with your parents, fucking run. They weren't even fucking around. They're like, if someone says your name and they don't know the password, I want you to run as fast as you can through the streets if you need to.
Yeah, and me being from the outside generation, we were scared to death of quicksand.
Yeah.
They fucking put it on morning cartoons and everything. I was terrified of quicksand.
Meanwhile,
it exists. Does it exist?
Your parents are fucking smoking in the house right behind you. There's like much bigger problems, and they're like, "Hey, just in case you're ever in a quicksand situation, don't move."
Yeah, and I was petrified when I was 7 years old of running across some quicksand
And getting stuck.
in rural Tennessee.
Have we checked back in on the science behind quicksand? Like, did that turn out to be just like, yeah, no, you should move. You should fight for your life, because they were like, don't move. Don't move,
right,
or you'll go down quicker.
Well, as we know, the science is always changing. I think they created quicksand in a lab.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. they started quicksand to shut down Little League games because kids were going to be too scared of the outfield or the infield.
The fucking Saudis did it.
If you come across somebody in quicksand, the way to get them out is to grab a big stick and put it in there and pull them out. Yeah. We all know that.
Well, that's so you can let go. If they start pulling you in, you're like, whoa, hey, easy, buddy.
Yeah, and I am not that close with you, so good luck in the center of the earth.
Best of luck to you. No, but do you remember?
God bless. I hope you can breathe sand.
Be still, man. Be still.
Do you remember when we were growing up in school, we're around the same age, them showing that video of the guy in the white van pulling up to the kids at the playground and offering them candy and other
yeah.
things. And the guy would pop up and be like, this, kids, is where you say no. And you scream, you
Yeah.
are not my mom. You are not my dad.
You know what they did? It makes sense because after that, they kind of followed through more and more with that, with playing to the stupidest kid in the room, where it's like, I wasn't a smart kid, but I think I was smart enough to know if a man just opened the side of a van and asked me to get in, I wouldn't be like, fuck yeah, dude, what's up? I think I was smart enough to be like, what's going on? Well, who are you?
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I don't remember loving candy that much where you'd be like, this is scary,
Yeah,
but
dude.
I really want the fucking Snickers.
Except then I remember the house that I lived in when I was 10, my friend Johnny lived around the corner, and on his block, there was a man that you could just go to his house, ring the doorbell, and he would give you candy.
Whoa.
How old was
And
this
we just
man?
did it. He was an older man. I would say he's probably in his 70s.
Wow.
Which really, honestly, until I've seen so many pedo docs, I was like, this guy ain't going to try to fucking touch me. Also, you got to remember in the summers, I was let loose into a fucking lake town with my alcoholic dad, who was the bartender. So it was like, I had a good spider sense at that age.
Wait, did you just knock on the door and like, hey, Mr. Friendly, can we have some candy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we're here. Do you want to just look at our little wieners and give us Kit Kats? Is that cool? No, he would just give us candy. He'd just be like, here you go. You're like, fucking thanks, dude.
Bunch of young boys in those YMCA issued short shorts coming up to the door.
Yeah. He's like, you boys know you need to put your candy shorts on if you want candy. And you're like, oh, yeah. No, he didn't molest us, but he got right to the line. He really.
He's putting that in the so-called spank bank for later, probably.
But were you like, did he try to keep you staying there talking to him?
No, we didn't go in his house. We were just always on his front porch, and he'd just come back out. Or his wife would bring us candy. They were just an old couple, and they had candy.
They were probably
we're trashing them, and they're really sweet people.
They're
We're sitting here calling them pedophiles.
Absolutely. And now because of all these monsters that lurk among us, we're like, were they fucking children? And they're like, we lost our son, so we just always wanted to have candy for the. And you're like, oh, you monster.
Or maybe their son was gay, so they never got to have grandchildren, and they just wanted to give grandchildren candy.
True. Or they are pedophiles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
One of the three.
They were videotaping everything and, just fucking to videos of you guys eating candy.
Oh, look at their little hands grabbing for the Reese's.
Look at their tongue on that lollipop. Ew.
Oh, fuck, dude. I didn't want to be fodder. He's like, eat the Kit Kat in front of me. Oh.
You can have the candy, but you got to eat it in front of me.
Yeah. Ooh, you took both Kit Kats at the same time. Ooh, you're a little piggy. I'm like, all right, dude. I think this is outweighing the joy of the candy.
Okay, so what about middle school and
transitioning from
teenage
pedophilia?
years?
What did you listen to music in your teenage years?
Good segue.
Yeah, I mean, teenage, it was all about learning whatever I could. Again, with the parents I grew up in, they didn't my mom didn't expose me to the Stones or Zeppelin or the Beatles, really. Like some Beatles, but not really. It was more like mom acoustic rock. And then with my dad, I was getting like Fun Time Lake drunk rock. So it really, high school was all about getting into. I had an older sister. My older sister was my half sister. She was 12 years older, and she was really good when I was about 9 or 10 at being like, hey, this is cool. And I really got into Metallica, and I really got into obviously Nirvana, Green Day, and it was, Alice in Chains. And then also hip hop, because it was Biggie. I got really into Biggie. I always really loved Biggie. And then Method Man. And from there would just kind of got into Redman from Method Man. And it was Outkast was real big. Outkast was real big when I was in middle school and high school. I just loved everything they did. Mm-hmm. And then, it was all about learning from other people, just sponging shit, going to a friend's house and he's putting on, he'll listen to a Beastie Boys album that I've never heard. Or I go to another friend's house and they're putting on Waylon Jennings. And I was like, oh shit. All right. And then so it would just be whose house? I just kind of liked all of it. I liked getting into stuff. And then that kind of turned into me trying to find what was mine. like what I liked in my late teens, like 17, 18, 19.
Well, we're about the same age, so when I would go to school, all of a sudden people would just be singing stuff in the hallway. So like I remember when Bling Bling came out, because everybody in the hallway went bling bling, you know.
Yeah.
Every time I come around the bonnet, bing bling.
Dude, I was a Cash Money millionaire for a little bit. I liked it all. I had friends that were super into No Limit, which I really think is funny. I had this friend Joey who was into No Limit to the point where it was like way past Master P being famous. And Joey was still like, nah, dude, No Limit. And you're like, this is so great. I love how loyal you are. I really just appreciated his loyalty.
And then everybody was making mix CDs, right, of all the popular art.
That was what there it is. That was our generation where it was, you could get into albums, specific albums, but more than likely you were making mixed CDs on burned CDs at your friend's house that had fucking good internet.
Yep, they had Napster or whatever the.
Yeah, when I went to college was when I first got my first computer, like a real computer, and it had like the Ethernet, so it was like fast, and I was just like fucking everything. Sly and the Family Stones. I got into like shit where I was like, I want all their songs. Have you heard James Brown? I got super into James Brown live at the Apollo, and I was like, this fucking album, because I was just downloading whatever I wanted to, and I was like, oh my god, there's all this shit. It was great.
Describing the
Dan,
downfall of the music business right there.
I know.
I got everything.
You know what?
For free, it was great. Hey, I do the same thing.
None of it. I paid. I know. What's crazy is it was being the age I was at. I was completely apathetic, I think, to Metallica and the Napster argument, because I was already like, because you're not thinking of young bands. You're thinking of, oh, it's Metallica. They make 60 million on the road a year touring. Fuck them. Right. And then you get older and you're like, then you get in the business and you're like, oh.
Yeah, dude, Lars was right. And he got shit on big time back then. The whole band took a beating for that. Oh, you fucking
really did.
He's worried about this, that, and the other. You're so fucking punk rock or whatever.
But he was right. He was absolutely right.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys are.
Go ahead.
Oh, what was that?
No, finish.
No, what were you saying?
Well,
I forgot it. I'm a pothead. It's already gone.
Yeah.
Hey, cheers.
Us too. Cheers. When we oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So you remember in Napster, and you used to download a song, and usually it'd be on the R&B songs. There'd be this guy that would have dubbed his voice in with the song, and it'd be like, "Yo, street, 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 street," in the middle of 50 Cent. You know, in the club, he would just pause the song almost and just be like,
can't forget about me. Yeah, it was. Then I realized that DJ Clue, that was actually what he did when I bought a DJ Clue album, and he was like, DJ Clue to the rescue. And I was like, oh shit, that's just a style. That was what's fun about Napster, is you could see different styles that you would have never been exposed to. I remember in high school learning about like Chopped and Screwed, like you know, where they would, that was the beginning of scissor, of fucking sipping fucking codeine. But they would take like, you know, UGK and then fucking slow it down, and you would listen and you'd be like, oh shit. I remember being high as fuck, and someone played me a Chopped and Screwed mystical song, and I was like, oh, I was just like high in the back of this Civic, just like, oh, what the fuck? But I loved it. It was great.
But it's funny because what you're talking about, what they were doing on Napster, you know, they've been doing it in Jamaica since the 60s. They call it toasting, and the radio DJs would do that. And they'd come like every intro, and in the middle, they would kind of start rapping. Some people say that's kind of how rap got started, from listening to that kind of stuff, because a bunch of Jamaican immigrants into New York City. But I don't know if they still do it anymore, but man, it is hilarious to listen to a Jamaican radio station if you're in Jamaica, and the DJ is just freestyling on it. It's great.
Yeah, he's like, oh fuck, let him go, dude. Let him get on that song. That's got to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and see, I was mad because it wasn't the actual song.
I get it. Well,
and it was some guy popping in, and I'm like, I just want to hear the song.
The thing that always pissed me off was when I'd be on like LimeWire or Kazaa, and I couldn't get the unedited song. It was like a specific song, and I was only getting radio edits. And I'm like, I don't want the fucking radio edit. I want the real song.
It's like watching Smokey and the Bandit on regular TV when they start.
Yeah, you're like, all the jokes are gone.
All of it is gone when you take that out.
And they would
Yeah.
lie to you too. They would say it was unedited, but it wouldn't be, because it
Son
was
of a
so hard
bitch.
to find.
You
But
got
then
ripped off for nothing. You were paying nothing and still got ripped off.
But then I started working in radio, and I just was able to take CDs home. So I got into like getting promo CDs.
When was
And I
that?
worked at it all 2002 or I worked at KFMA in Tucson, Arizona from 2003 to 2007.
So right out of high school, basically. Right?
Yeah, I was at the University of Arizona and I hated it. So I started doing college radio. I was too scared to do stand up at that point. So I did college radio, and then I was like, I want to work at a radio. I need a job. I needed a job bad. And I was like, I did college radio. And then that summer I went and worked in Alaska at a commercial cannery fishery. I don't know what I'm fucking talking about.
Morning, ladies.
Yeah. And then I brought that money home and blew through it and was like, oh shit, I need a job. So I got a job at Outback Steakhouse bussing tables. And I was 4 years older than the guy training me. He's like this 15-year-old. And he's like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been busting tables since I was 13. I can do it. And he was like, I gotta show you how to do it. And I was like, all right. And then I just harassed the program director of KFMA. And she was finally like, all right, we need an overnight guy. So I started doing overnights when I was 19.
Wow.
And then it's like, you work at a radio station back before it was all downloaded. You just get a ton of free CDs.
Yeah, I had a friend
Came
that
in
worked at a record label, so I would get tons of stuff that that was like a gold mine. If it was on, I forget, Capitol Records, I could get anything. She'd give me the catalog that you could order stuff out of for free. It was awesome.
So my side hustle at KFMA, because I was getting hourly. I think I was getting like shit, $8, $8.50 an hour to DJ there. And so whatever, I fucking loved working there, and all the people I worked with were incredible. It was just such a fun experience, but I was dead broke. And so what I would do is I had this show on Sundays that my friend Greg gave me called The Test Department, and they would send in CDs from the labels. Like, we played Kings of Leon. There was like a lot of bands that we played first that I was like, oh shit, those guys ended up being fucking big. But they would give us the full CDs with the barcode hole punched out, but it was the full It was the full album before it came out. So I had this box in the back of my Dodge Stratus, and I would just every Sunday take a stack of CDs and put it in this big brown box. And then every like 3 or 4 weeks, I would take it to Zia Records and I would just give it to the guy, and he would scan it, and he would be like, all right, I can give you $250 store credit or $175 cash. And I'd be like, give me that cash. And I fucking, and it bought me cigarettes, groceries. I fucking loved it. It was such a good side hustle. So basically what I'm saying is I've been fucking the music industry my whole life.
I don't know, man. Some of those old, even not necessarily the radio job, but working in a warehouse and shit like that. Some of the funniest times I've ever had is working around the people in a shitty job when you're. You always tell people that like racism ends when everybody's working for the man, and you get around, you bust balls. Everybody takes shots at your ethnicity, everything. It's great.
Ethnicity.
I'm a little high, but it came out right.
I liked it. Hey, listen, as a guy that fucks up words all the time, I appreciate you going through the finish line. I appreciate you.
I was going to not
race.
say anything, but I know.
Let that go by.
Yeah,
we
anyway.
can't let that go by.
Let that. Honestly, you could have convinced me I've been wrong my whole life. And I was like, it is ethnicity.
You got to stutter in the middle. It's like it's laughing.
It's ethnicity.
Shit.
You knew what it was. You couldn't even say it wrong, Dan. It's okay.
Oh, shit.
JD, though.
But yeah, you're right. Working a shitty job, you really become close with people that you would probably never think you'd become close with because you're both just trying to survive the day.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's why I love comedy, because it's like I'm just blown away. I get to do this as a job.
Yeah,
Still
when did you
blown away.
start?
Yeah, let's get into comedy.
Yeah, when did you start comedy?
What gave you the idea?
Well, wait a minute. What's the first comedian you remember loving as a kid? What was the first idea that was a job and a thing?
It was Dana Carvey and Robin Williams. Again, my dad was from the Bay Area, so anybody from the Bay Area got over in my house immediately. Like anybody that grew up in fucking San Francisco, Marin, Oakland, anything, was like a god in our house. So Dana Carvey and Robin Williams, and I loved it. I just loved Dana Carvey on SNL. I loved Robin Williams, obviously, who didn't. you know, he was so lovable. And then Rodney Dangerfield. My dad really loved Rodney Dangerfield, and we always like that was the adult comedy I could watch because I really didn't get it. I didn't get half the jokes. And then my dad, I would watch How Hard He Met My Dad Laugh, and Mel Brooks. We could always, my dad would put on like Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles. And again, I didn't really get the jokes, but I remember when Robin Hood Men in Tights came out, my dad took me to it because we had been watching Mel Brooks, and he's like, there's a new one in movie theaters. And I loved it. I remember cry laughing when his sword sheath comes up and it looks like a boner.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, I was in the movie theater. I thought I was going to throw up. I was laughing so hard. But my dad really like, you know, I would only see him up until I was 10. I would really only see him like twice a year, but he would it was all about comedy and the 49ers. That was like all we did. And so I would just, you know, he took me to Wayne's World. I remember going to see Wayne's World in the movie theater with some random lady he was dating. And then it was like, you know, I just kind of loved comedy. And then I liked being funny. I liked being funny in school. I liked to the point where I'd get in trouble a lot, but I just always was like, if you can make them like my mom was always super stressed out because she was a single mom that was like, you know, working real hard. And I always noticed, like, if I could be funny, I could get out of a lot of trouble. So I was just like, you know, one of those kids, class clown, I guess.
So did anybody suggest that hey, dude, you should be a stand-up, that like kind of pushed you that way? Or did you just like give it a shot?
I think I always kind of.
Yeah. How did you get in actually doing it?
Oh, man, I wanted to do, I mean, watching Dave Chappelle's Killing Him Softly, I was like, yeah, I want to try to do that. And I loved, you know, Napster age. I was able to download Opie and Anthony clips, and I was able to download stand-up. Like I could download half hour, like HBO half hours, just the audio of it, like Patton Oswalt's, and there was a bunch of like David Tell I learned through Napster, and Opie and Anthony, like Patrice O'Neill, Bill Burr. So I just became, and then as college went on, I loved Tough Crowd. I loved
one of my favorite shows of all time, Tough Crowd.
Yeah, and I was a big Colin Quinn guy because I loved him on Weekend Update, but I loved him. Hearing him on Opie and Anthony kind of changed everything because you're like, oh man, these are guys that, and they like, it was that idea that they all lived in the same city and did stand up together. And I was like, that's so fucking cool. And then the documentary, my friend Zach bought me this documentary, Comedian, about Jerry Seinfeld coming back into comedy. And I was like 17 when he got it for me, and I was obsessed. I would watch it nonstop because it was the best glimpse of the New York stand-up comedy scene that I had ever seen. And I was just like, that looks fucking awesome. Like him at Stand Up New York, him going in like trying a joke in another place. But I was always like, yeah, I'm funny, but I'm not like, I don't think I could do that. And then when I worked in Alaska, I lived with my aunt who was really funny, my dad's sister. And I was like, do you think I could be a stand-up? And she was like, yeah, you could do stand-up. And then I was making the guys that I worked with that were like commercial fishermen and like deckhands and shit laugh. And I was like, maybe I should try those guys.
Yeah, if you can make those guys laugh, you're onto something.
Yeah, and they're hardened. So when I went back to Tucson, you know, it took me like 7 months to get the balls, but then I went and did an open mic. Like, didn't know what I was doing, just did it, and it went well. And I was like, this is fucking great. And then I bombed the next 5 or 6 times in ways that I still remember to this day. You know, when you can shut your eyes and you can put yourself back in a place? I can do that with one of those bombs. Yeah. It was a 3-minute set on an open mic, and I bailed at 1:15.
Wow. That's a serious bomb right there.
It was all, and I remember it was all premises. I was stuck. I was just stuck in the mud. I just kept being like, you guys ever go out on a date? And then you ever fuck? And then I just bailed. And I was still working at KFMA at the time. And there was a comedian on the morning show named Dave Ashley, who was fucking hilarious, a very funny guy, and passed away early. But he was a really great dude. And we were at this like dinner for the employees. And I told him I had done open mics and I was bombing. And he was like, yeah, you got to prepare. He's like, you gotta go in with stuff. And I was like, yeah.
Oh,
Like,
right.
It's not like I wasn't it's not like I didn't understand the idea of jokes or bits. I understood all that, but it was like the application process I didn't understand. And I was like, cool, which by the way, I wasn't completely wrong because I still to this day write a lot on stage.
Yeah.
But that was one of the two most valuable lessons I've ever had in comedy was prepare. It was just like, Dave was just like, yeah, prepare. And then I started going to open mics and it started going a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And then I just stuck with it and just every fucking Wednesday, just go and do an open mic, and then got guest sets. And then I got to guest MC. And then I got to, and Scotty Goff, who owned Laughs at the time, was very supportive and just a great owner and a guy that, we had a little group of comics there in Tucson. And so it was fun. I really was lucky to land at Laughs.
How did you get out to New York?
Did my time. I graduated from Arizona. I did the one thing I promised my mom I would do, which was get a college degree for her. And that, I didn't care. I was already doing stand-up at that
And
point.
What did you get a degree in?
Journalism, the thing that's completely deteriorated due to the internet. Old print media. But it was what was interesting about it was I thought it would help me write because like writing your lead is all about cutting it down, cutting the fat out.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked my journalism professor. And I liked you could bullshit. I liked anything you could bullshit. So I did that and then, minored in political science because you could, I just wanted to learn about the things that control everything, which is media and government.
I would imagine that journalism would kind of train your brain for comedic editing, like getting everything short. Because I'm sure you had you got you cut out all the fat and get down to.
And I was also in that stage in college where I was, I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink anymore, but I was like coming into my alcoholic powers, like you are your father's son. And I was just like, the power. But I was also super into reading Hunter S. Thompson. And so those kind of fueled things.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask if you had read Hunter Thompson because that's what you're describing. Because he's like the cool journalist,
Yeah. And I got into reading him. And I was also covering part of the senior project at the University of Arizona is you have to write for the Tombstone Epitaph, which is an actual newspaper in the town of Tombstone, Arizona. And so you basically the journalism department runs their newspaper. And so you work for actually a weekly newspaper. And I was like, well, Hunter S. Thompson started in sports, so I'll do sports. I love sports. And I covered the high school football team, but would just get blackout drunk on Thursday night either at a bar or at the comedy club. And then be brutally hungover all day Friday, and then have to drive down with my sports editor and cover this fucking high school football game. And I would just drink tall boys and rip cigarettes by his car. And he would just be like, dude, I would show up with like a black plastic bag with like 4 Bud tall boys. And he'd be like, all right, dude, come on. We're going to a high school game. I was like, I know. And I am hurting. So let's get ripped. Let's do it.
That's hilarious.
And I loved it. It was just fun. It was just a very fun, weird time in my life,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Tough Crowd. To me, because I'm old enough to remember back the New York, not the scene, but during that Tough Crowd era, there seemed to be a group of dudes that ran around, Geraldo, those guys, a bunch of guys.
Apollo.
And they're also all still doing it. Colin, Patrice, Keith.
Patrice and Geraldo are dead.
Well, they're not still doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's which is 2 of the biggest losses because those are 2 of my favorites of all time.
But it does seem like you guys have that kind of thing going on again with you guys, the Skanks, Ari, Mark Norman. There seems to be another crew of dudes running around like that. You just don't have.
That's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me in comedy. that probably because what I love about Norman and what I love about Jay and the Skanks and Ari and all that stuff is we're all fans of those guys. Like Voss and Keith and Colin and Jim Norton. And it's kind of like those were the guys we grew up loving. So, but there's something missing because we're not busting the balls of the younger generation. That's stopped. And I think that needs to change.
Yeah, ball busting in general seems to have stopped. And I can't speak for women, but as a young man, ball busting by your friends is invaluable. It keeps you in check. You get your feelings hurt. Yeah, and you get used to people being brutally honest and maybe just fucking with you, but still you get used to that.
What it does is it's a form of humility and honesty that you get by having people that you love say very mean things to you.
Yeah.
They're saying very, very mean things to you in a very funny way and making it creative.
Yeah.
And we've completely lost that because now victim mentality is rewarded. So if you have enough evidence to be like, and they were mean to me, and everyone's like, well, that shouldn't happen. And you started seeing those cracks in that armor when you saw like YouTube vloggers, like parents, and they're making their kids cry so they can put it on a video. And you're like, yeah, how fucking broken are we? How broken are we that I can't tell my friend that his sweatshirt makes him look really dumb, but this kid's getting forced to cry in a car, and everyone's gonna be like, what's the GoFundMe? And it's just it's fucked. It's all fucked. Everyone's lying to each other. No one's honest.
They are, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody's really outraged about anything. You know what I
Nothing.
mean? Like you hear all this stuff and people will post away. They don't give a fuck. You know, you get outraged about the thing in your tiny little circle if somebody raises your property taxes or this guy calls you an asshole on the street. Other than that, nobody cares. They don't
Everyone
care.
Everyone forgets also you can put your phone down.
Yeah.
You know that you can just put it down and you can walk away. And my girlfriend is very good at helping me with that. Where I'll get anxious. I'll get like anxiety from seeing something online. And she's like, what did you see? She just like feels it. And I'm like, I didn't see nothing. She's like, what did you see? And she's like, put the phone down. You don't need that. They're not in the house. They're not going to fucking come through the door. It's something you choose to read or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all think we're unaffected. Well, I know what's going on with the algorithms, but it's there to brainwash you. I mean, it is. You can't.
Yeah, I mean,
once you're in, you're not bigger than. They got too much data on you to get in and be like, all right, I know the drill.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's different for me. I only look in a different way. But I would. What's funny about that is I'm trying to see which social media makes me I'm doing like a test.
Yeah.
So I'm taking. I took away Instagram. I'm just not going on it. I have a company that posts for me or whatever. But It's not going on it. I'm only going on Twitter. And I'm seeing how that makes me feel. And then I'm going to cut Twitter and see how that makes me feel. And it's just kind of like finding your recipe. Because Twitter can be fun sometimes. If you're like, hey, fuck you. You know, like you got a good joke. A lot of shit on Twitter makes me laugh. Some stuff on Instagram makes me laugh. But Instagram feels right now I'm going through a point where it's too showy. It's too show-offy. I don't need that right now. I feel
douchey. I feel douchey when I post anything it's like, why am I doing this? It feels so like I'm trying to be cool, and I just don't like. Why? Who cares? Who gives a shit? Either listen to the music or don't.
Exactly. But I also think that we're getting older, and I think this is where it's like, this is where we need to stop sounding old, and you need to be like, well, the kids that are growing up on this shit, it's like. We were talking about middle school, and you were talking about your parents hating you at 13. That was when I was my worst. 8th grade, I was the worst person in the world.
Me too.
And then to think that there was just the internet just recording all of it and just being like, hey, you little shit. It's always funny now when there's like old tweets they bring up from like quarterbacks in the NFL or something, and they're like, look what he said. And you're like, dude, he was 16. he was a 16-year-old tweeting. I don't think he has the answers. He's not a wise, sage 16-year-old. He's a fucking idiot filled with cum, just breathing with cum. 16-year-old boys are just all testosterone. Maybe he's saying some fucking stupid shit.
So JB has this theory, and he's had it for a while, and I think it's true. That
the one you've been shitting on me for.
Well, I think it's real with my kids. You know, so I think the next generation, which I have twin boys, and they're almost 15.
Okay.
And they're 9th grade, and they hate social media. They don't go on it. They don't do TikTok.
Good.
They don't do any of it. So tell them your theory that there's going to be a generation that does.
Yeah, I've been saying this for 10 years now, and it's a little crazy.
And
but
I said no for a long.
Yeah,
like
I was like, there's going to be a generation. It's going to take a charismatic leader, like a young Kurt Cobain or something. But a whole generation, you guys, fuck this. We're unplugging. And it's the unplugged generation where they go back to like,
I completely agree with that.
Crazy, because it's a punk rock move at some point. You know what I mean?
I think it's my kids. Generation.
Yeah, I can't tell you if you're going to be wrong or right. I can just tell you that I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Maybe it's
because I've been having a theory about comedy that we just ended the hair metal. The pandemic ended the hair metal era of stand-up comedy, of it being cute and hot and everyone being like, you know, just singing about nothing, just singing about fucking, you ever go out and you're just like out and you're like out and then you're just out and then you're like party. And then I think everyone was phony and everyone got really good at being phony on Instagram and on TikTok. And everyone's really good at being like, hey guys, I'm undefeated. I never lose, never had a bad day. Here's what I do. I drink celery. And then now I think we're going to hit a grunge generation. I think where it's going to be, I think people are going to seek out genuine people. I think they're going to seek out people who are not lying to them.
Authenticity.
Being like, yeah, I think authenticity is going to be, that's going to be the crypto of the next, you know, boom of stand up. It's going to be like, dude, are you really lying to me? And a lot of comics, we're fake. We're phonies. We're phonies and psychos. That's all. That's the two groups that we are. I've been saying that for, you know, a little bit. It's like a new thing, you know, I'm trying to get across. But it's, but it really is. It's like Instagram was bumming me out because I was watching people be phonies. I was watching friends of mine be phonies, but then I have to remind myself we're in a business of phonies. And even though you see phony people get to the very, very top and be very, very famous, you're like, all right. And then, but I understand the fans that are like, call them out, fucking say their names. And you're like, dude, I'm a coworker with them. You know, I'll wait till they'll steal my food in the fridge. Then I call them out. But just because I don't like Donna, the floor manager, doesn't mean I'm going to make it a problem at work, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And I also feel that nobody really gives a shit about understood you's opinion. Anybody. Like, I don't think anybody cares what I have to think. And with, you know, my friends or whatever, but the people that make grand proclamations and all that, I don't understand what they're going for because nobody cares.
I genuinely am just trying to get as funny as I can be. I just want to be the funniest, like that. So when I die or when I look back when I'm old, I'm like, yeah, I really tried. I really fucking tried. And I you know, hopefully made progress, hopefully evolved a couple times.
Yeah, and I think the only lasting art of any form that's going to make it last is authenticity. Because everybody, you know, popular here, you know, there's plenty of millions selling. Yeah, people.
And you know, I think
sometimes you don't want that. You just want some like candy music, blah blah blah. But I think to your point, people intuitively, at least from our ages up, know that this is fake. Just an intuitive thing. So whenever you see, because you're as you're posting shit, you're like, well, I'm, you know, filter, blah, you know, it's all fake. But I think when you see something real, it really, people like, holy shit, you know?
Or the fact, like, I'll text you and be like, is this funnier to say or is this funnier? Like, how should I say? Just the fact that I'm texting my friend, JB, like, what's funnier to say on this Instagram post that doesn't even fucking matter, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, man, when you see those people who are good at it, you realize it's just like anything that they've just put more time into being better at Instagram than you. It doesn't mean they're better than you. It just means that's where they spend their fucking time.
Right.
Is learning how to post, what angle to post, now fuck it. I'll hire a company that knows all that shit. I do. I'll pay monthly for someone to be like, we'll post this stand-up clip of yours on this date at this time. Fucking killer, dude. Here's the caption. I don't want to watch it. I want to go, you know, even Twitter. I'd prefer Twitter because I'm reading news stories. You're reading breaking news, reading people's reactions to shit, kind of watching humans move instead of having it rubbed in your face, which is what. And then what's funny is like you talk about that unplugged generation, but do you guys remember when Facebook was everything? We're old enough to remember that. It was Facebook. It was like MySpace and then Facebook. And it's like, can you believe we're on MySpace? And now you look and you're like, can you believe you're on Facebook? That shit's fucking so outdated now. You show back up, it's like a mall that's dilapidated. You're like, oh, fuck, dude, was that the Mr. Rags?
And which is hilarious because they're all basically the same thing, too.
It's all the same
packaged
shit.
Differently. It's crazy.
Exactly.
They can keep coming up with a new one. They're like, it should have stopped with MySpace.
They'll get us when we're on Slap Dick, you know, when we're just on Slap Dick showing our fucking turds to each other. Some weird post-apocalyptic thing. Oh, look, Dan's posting he's drinking clean water. Ooh. Ooh. Just the fall of the world social media. Ooh, Dan got inside from that acidic sandstorm that hit New York City where there's never been sand.
Ooh, look at Dan in the quicksand. Turns out it still exists.
Yeah. Oh, he's moving. He's moving. Oh, he's done.
He's a goner.
He's
Live
done.
stream of the quick.
He's gone. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm not moving, but it's taking me.
Okay, Dan. So before I let you go, you already gave us a little bit of the story about Papa Willie stopping at the bowling alley to hang out with your dad or whatever.
Yeah.
But what is the first time you remember, or when is the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa? And what's your own Willie Nelson?
Willie Nelson's a country singer from
If you
Wayne
don't know
County,
who that
Michigan.
is, yeah.
If you don't know Willie Nelson, fuck you. First off, he's the best celebrity endorsed weed I've ever smoked in my life. Willie's Reserve fucking
good,
rules.
right? Yeah. Taste.
I went to the dispensary in Aurora, Colorado, where my mom lives, and it was Christmas. And I was like, to the guy behind the counter, I'm like, dude, what's your favorite weed here? And he's like, whoo, that Willie Nelson weed. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we got indica, try it. And I loaded a bowl and I brought my PlayStation home with me. This is like 4 years ago. And I fucking pack a bowl. I go down to the garage in my mom's apartment complex and fucking smoke a bowl, come upside. I sit down to play PlayStation and I'm like, dude, I'm fucking high school high. I was like in the couch where I was like, what's going on? I was like, I'm fucking rocked right now. And then every time I go back to Aurora, I go back and I'm like, you guys got any Willie's Reserve? I'm looking to get smacked. But I remember my dad obviously was the first person that played Willie Nelson for me. And the sound of your grandpa's voice when he's young versus when he's old, I remember it threw me off. And I was like, that's the same guy. My dad was like, oh yeah, he was very young. And I was like, oh shit. And so it was a fun thing to learn about. I learned brief with it. But then my roommate, Victor Garcia, when I was friends with him in college, and he was like, it's my brother. I love him to death. And he loved your grandpa. So he would just sing when I would get high. He'd call me 90. We were roommates for 5 years. And whenever I get stoned in my windowless room, he would call me 90% Dan, because he's like 90% of the time you're high. So he would either sing your grandfather's songs or the Doors songs when I would smoke a bowl. I would like get high and he'd be like, you were always on my mind, when I would come out of the room, and I'd be like, all right. Or I would come out of the room and he'd be like, come on, touch me, baby. And I'd just be like, dude, shut up.
So these are the 5 years that
Like,
you
that's
hated
how
Willie Nelson.
Dude, but I loved it. And then I got into Willie because he would sing it, and then I downloaded it and I'd be like, dude, Willie Nelson rules. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That was a good Papa Willie story. Thanks for doing this with us, Dan. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for doing it.
You're cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks. You guys are cool too. I appreciate talking to you guys, and thanks for having me on.
When you come to Nashville, that's where we are. Whenever you come here to Zanies or the Rhino,
Yeah, I'll be
people play.
I'm doing Zanies, and I think I'm doing it later in the year. When, I don't know.
Well, I'll keep track of that, and I'll reach out to you then, and maybe we can do a live one, and you can come to the
that'd be
weekend.
badass. Yeah,
Cool.
come in and hang out and check out, and be in person.
Yeah.
Get actual chemistry instead of that weird Zoom wait to talk, wait to talk.
Yeah, and
It'll
also
be- but absolutely, I'd love to.
Zanies. Yeah, Lucy at Zanies is really cool. So if you couldn't get out and about, then we can come down there and hang out with you there during
Lucy
the day or something.
rules.
Yeah, she's cool.
And we can find
Yeah,
you some
I love
Willie's Reserve when you come to, in case you fly.
Yeah.
Green light's
Travel
back
lightly.
on. Getting that heavy green light. Yeah, hell yeah, guys. It was nice meeting you. Thanks for
Nice
having
to
me on.
meet you too,
All right,
Dan.
man.
See you later.
See you later.
Dan Soder is my favorite comedian.
Yes, he did not disappoint. Crack me up. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's the best.
Anyway, tune in next week or the next time one of these things come out.
Oh yeah, and we have shows coming up, so come see us and go to our website and look at the tours and come see us.
RaelynNelsonBand.com. Enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Enjoy your cigarette.